Have you ever had a friend who you did everything for, but they didn't seem to do the same for you? Imagine you shared your lunch, helped them with their homework, and always picked them first for your team. But then one day, they just walked away without saying goodbye. It would hurt a lot, wouldn't it? This is a story about a man named Trevor who felt exactly that way. For a long time, Trevor stayed very quiet. He didn't want to tell the world about his broken heart. But now, after 10 long years, the silence is finally over. People are starting to learn the truth about what happened between him and a woman who became very famous. It is a story about secrets, a wedding ring sent in the mail, and a plan that might have started long before anyone knew. Get ready, because we are going to look deep into a story that feels like a movie, but it happened in real life. Before Trevor ever said a single word out loud, his family already had a bad feeling. For 10 years, Trevor kept his mouth shut and didn't tell his secrets. But even before he stopped talking, his mom, dad, and friends saw that something was not right. They saw Trevor giving everything he had to his wife, Meghan. He gave her all his time. He was always there for her. He was loyal and did everything he could to make her happy. But when his family looked at Meghan, they did not see the same thing. They saw a woman who did not seem to give back as much as she took. People who are close to Trevor say his family noticed a change very early on. The love did not feel like a two-way street. Trevor was doing all the work, while Meghan was just along for the ride. It felt like a scale that was tipped too far to one side. Trevor bent over backward to try to make his marriage stay together, but his family started to pull away. They weren't being mean or acting like they didn't like her for no reason. They were reacting to a deep feeling in their hearts. They felt like Trevor was pouring all his love into a person who was already building a life that didn't really include him. It felt like the whole relationship was built on a story that wasn't actually true. But what was that big secret? What was the tiny crack in the marriage that nobody saw until everything fell apart? Why did Trevor wait 10 years to finally let the world know why his family walked away? The story really starts with something Meghan allegedly told Trevor behind closed doors. It was a secret that would change how Trevor felt forever. Before Meghan Markle ever met a prince, and before she became a duchess that everyone knew, she was just a woman standing in front of the man she promised to love forever. People who know Trevor say she told him something that changed their entire future. They say Meghan looked Trevor in the eye and told him she could not have children. For Trevor, this was not just a small piece of news. It was a giant change to everything he thought their life would be. He really wanted to have a family and build a dream with her. But in that moment, he believed that dream was gone. He didn't get mad at her. He didn't try to force her to change her mind. He didn't even ask a lot of questions. He just changed his own dreams to match hers. When you love someone that much, you accept what they tell you. Trevor changed his whole life around this new reality. He never used it as a reason to be mean. He never doubted that she was telling the truth. He just accepted a future without kids because he thought they were being honest with each other. But many years later, something happened that changed everything. Meghan and Prince Harry had 2 children. When this happened, the promise Trevor had accepted was completely broken. People who talked to Trevor say he wasn't even angry at first. Instead, he was just very confused and felt lost. The ground he thought he was standing on suddenly felt like it was made of sand. The truth he had trusted for so long now felt like a very painful lie. He started to wonder if she once believed what she told him, or if she never intended to tell him the real truth at all. In that moment, the love he felt started to feel like betrayal. It was the kind of hurt that makes a whole family step back and wonder what else was a lie. They started to see the relationship in a way that Trevor had refused to see for a long time. Trevor's story begins with this secret, because it was the tiny crack that eventually broke the whole house down. If that secret about children was the first crack, the way their marriage continued made the crack get bigger and bigger until it was impossible to ignore. People who know Trevor say he is the kind of man who shows his love by working hard. He doesn't just say nice words, he does nice things. When Meghan was just starting out as an actress, he did everything he could to help her. When she got a big job on a TV show called Suits and had to move to Toronto, Trevor did something that many people would find very hard. He followed her pace, no matter how fast she was moving or how far away she went. He spent so much time on airplanes. He was always flying to see her, trying to balance his own busy job with hers. He wanted to make sure their bond stayed strong even though they lived in different places. He sent her boxes of gifts and things she liked. He checked on her after her long days of filming. He even tried to find ways to move his own work so he could be closer to her. Trevor wasn't just being a good husband, he was putting his whole heart into her success. But the more Trevor tried to get closer, the more Meghan seemed to move away. Friends who saw them together said it was very strange. Meghan didn't get into big fights or scream at him. Instead, she just pulled away very quietly and carefully. It wasn't because she was too tired or because the distance was too hard. It seemed like her goals were changing, and Trevor was no longer part of those goals. Friends noticed it, and his family felt it too. Trevor felt it in his heart, even if he didn't want to admit it was happening. Their marriage no longer looked like two people building a life together. It looked like one person was holding up the whole world while the other person was already looking for a new world to live in. Trevor was the one doing all the compromising and adjusting. Meghan was just moving up and moving on. As she became more famous, Trevor's place in her life got smaller and smaller. In the end, the marriage wasn't held together by two people. It was only held together by Trevor's love. Every marriage has an end, but very few end as coldly as this one did. After being together for almost 10 years, and after all the years of trying and loving, Meghan didn't even have a talk with him. She didn't sit down at a table and tell him why she was leaving. She didn't even call him on the phone to say goodbye. Instead, she put her wedding ring in an envelope and mailed it back to him. There was no letter inside. There was no explanation. There was just the ring. That ring was a symbol of every promise they had ever made to each other, but she sent it back like it was a piece of clothing she didn't want anymore. For Trevor, opening that package was a terrible shock. It wasn't just the end of a marriage. It felt like his whole past was being erased. He realized that Meghan had left the relationship in her mind a long time ago. People close to him say that this moment hurt him more than any argument ever could. He didn't get any closure. He didn't get to say his final words. There was just a big, empty silence. In that silence, Trevor started to have a lot of questions. He wondered what else he didn't know. He wondered if their whole relationship was just a stepping stone for her to get somewhere better. For Trevor's family, this was the moment when everything finally made sense. All the times they felt uneasy, and all the times they saw things were unfair came back to them. The ring in the mail didn't just end the marriage. It proved that all their quiet fears were true. Once the dust settled, the truth was right there in front of them. Meghan didn't just leave Trevor. She threw away the life they had built together without even looking back. Years went by and Trevor started over. He built a new life, stayed very quiet, and kept his memories buried deep inside. But some people say that one specific detail finally made him want to speak up. It was a detail so strange that it made him look at his whole marriage in a new way. There is a story that long before Meghan ever met Prince Harry, she made a vision board. This is a board where you put pictures of things you want in the future. Right in the middle of that board was a picture of Prince Harry. He wasn't just there because she thought he was cute. He was there as a goal. People who say they saw the board say it wasn't just a dream. It was like a map or a plan. They say Meghan had studied the royal family very carefully. She had figured out exactly what path she wanted to take. This was not the story she told the world later. She told everyone it was a surprise date and a fairy tale that just happened by luck. But Trevor's friends say the fairy tale was written long before it ever started. For Trevor, this felt like a cold realization. All those years he spent wondering why she left suddenly had an answer. She wasn't moving toward a mystery. She was moving toward a plan she had made. He was just a chapter in a book that she was ready to finish. If the vision board showed she had a plan, what she did next showed how she made it happen. When she finally met Prince Harry for the very first time, some people say she did something very specific. They say she wore the exact same perfume that Princess Diana, Harry's mother, used to love. Scent is very powerful because it can make you remember things from a long time ago. When Harry smelled that perfume, it probably made him think of his mom and feel safe and happy. To Harry, it might have felt like it was meant to be, but to the people who knew Meghan, it felt like a smart move. They say this was not an accident at all. While Harry thought the universe was bringing them together, others believe Meghan planned it perfectly. She knew that a man who was still sad about losing his mother would react strongly to that smell. It wasn't a loud kind of trickery. It was very quiet and smart, and it worked perfectly. Harry didn't just fall in love with Meghan. He fell in love with a moment she had created. Trevor, hearing this years later, allegedly saw a pattern. It was the same kind of planning he felt during their own marriage. As these stories from Trevor started to spread, they didn't just affect Meghan. They also affected Prince Harry. People who know what happens inside their big house in California say the prince was very upset. For a long time, he had defended Meghan against everyone. He fought with the palace and the newspapers because he believed her story. He stayed by her side through every hard time because he thought he knew who she really was. But this time, the bad news wasn't coming from a stranger. It was coming from the man who lived with her before she was famous. It was coming from someone who loved her before she had a perfect image. It is much harder to ignore words from someone who is actually there. People say Harry spent a lot of time alone in his house, feeling very confused. He was torn between the woman he loved and the things he was hearing about her past. One person even said Harry told Meghan to stop blaming the palace for everything. That one sentence showed he was getting tired. He was starting to see that the stories she told might not be the whole truth. For the first time, he wasn't just protecting her, he was asking her questions. After Trevor's stories started coming out, Meghan's schedule suddenly got very empty. She was supposed to go to a big meeting for businesswomen, but it was canceled. She was supposed to do a question and answer event for charity in New York, but that was canceled too. Many of her public plans were quietly taken away. People close to her say she just could not face the reporters. She knew the very first thing they would ask was about Trevor, and she didn't have a good answer ready. The woman who used to be so brave in front of cameras was now hiding in silence, and that silence made people even more suspicious. People who used to support her started watching her old interviews again, but this time they were looking for lies. The tears she cried and the things she said now looked like a play or a performance. At the same time, people on Trevor's side are saying something even more scary for Meghan. They say he hasn't even told the whole story yet. They believe that what the public knows now is just a small part of what he actually knows. They say he has been holding back the most hurtful details because he wants to be respectful. But because Meghan is trying so hard to keep him quiet, he might not feel like he has to be nice anymore. Some people think he might write a book or do another big interview where he shows proof of everything. The perfect image she spent years building is starting to break. It isn't being broken by the palace or by people who hate her. It is being broken by the one man who knew her before she changed who she was. Every story she told and every documentary she made relied on the idea that no one from her past would ever talk. But Trevor did talk, and now the truth is coming out into the light. In the world of famous people, changing your story is how you survive. In the world of kings and queens, it is seen as a big problem. But in the real world, you can only change your story so many times before people stop believing you. Meghan is now at that limit. While Trevor's friends whisper about more secrets and more documents, Meghan's silence is getting louder and louder. Her lawyers might try to stop him, and her helpers might try to change the story again. But the past is not staying hidden anymore. Trevor's voice has become the one thing she cannot stop. It is not because he is being loud or mean. It is because people believe him. He isn't doing it to be famous or to get even. He is just telling the truth that he lived. Now the world is left with a question that Meghan cannot control. She cannot write a script for this, and she cannot use her charm to make it go away. If Trevor has finally started talking, who else from her past might be next? This is not the end of the whole story. It is just the beginning of the truth coming out. It is like a row of dominoes. Once the first one falls, the rest will follow, and they won't stay standing for long. The whole world is watching to see what happens next.